The Dolphins now face a situation that feels less like a routine contract negotiation and more like a genuine fork in the road. Tyreek Hill's season ended in brutal fashion, his knee collapsing on the turf against the Jets on Monday night, and suddenly the questions came pouring in. Was that the last snap he'll ever take in aqua and orange? Did Dolphins fans just witness the end of an era that felt like it had barely begun? Not long after, Drew Rosenhaus, Hill's agent and a man never afraid to stir the pot, sat down for an interview with Josh Moser. His words didn't close any doors, and in fact, they opened new ones. He'd love to stay with the Dolphins, Rosenhaus said, as if to calm the storm before it became unbearable. He added that talks after the season were expected, and that if Miami was willing, if there was room to find a number, then maybe Hill's story with this franchise wasn't finished after all. It sounded hopeful on the surface. It sounded like business as usual. But this is not a normal negotiation, and this is not a normal player. Rosenhaus knows what everyone else already understands. Hill's current contract doesn't work anymore. The numbers are enormous, the cap hit's unmanageable, and the injury only complicates everything. There's an out in his deal after this year. The Dolphins could cut ties and, with a post-June 1 designation, shave $39 million off their 2026 cap figure. That kind of financial reset is tempting for any front office, especially one that's been busy stripping away bad contracts, chasing youth, and trying to keep the long-term core intact. A trade? Technically possible. But what team would pay real value for a 32-year-old wide receiver fresh off a devastating knee injury, carrying one of the heaviest deals in football? It's a scenario so unlikely it feels like fiction. That leaves Miami with two real options, restructure or release. And both come with their own kind of pain. On paper, you can make the case that the Dolphins don't need Hill. Jalen Waddle already commands top receiver money. Devon Achane has world-class speed that can tilt a defense on any given snap. Mike McDaniel's scheme thrives on pace, creativity, and mismatches. The argument is there. Miami can survive without him. But is that really true? Hill changes the geometry of the field in a way few players ever have. Even in what many called a down year, his presence alone forced defenses to play differently. Safeties drifted deeper. Cornerbacks panicked. Defensive coordinators lost sleep. Hill's production dipped, yes, but it was still more than respectable. And the numbers don't measure the fear factor, the constant tension he creates every time he lines up wide. Do the Dolphins really want to strip that away? For all the panic, Rosenhaus delivered one piece of news that pulled everything back from despair. The surgery went better than expected. Torn ligaments were repaired in a single procedure. No nerve damage. No blood flow complications. No broken bones. Cartilage intact. The kind of update you cling to when you saw the injury unfold live and assumed the worst. The target is for Hill to be ready next season. That is the headline Rosenhaus wanted to plant in everyone's mind. Ready for week 1, back to himself, the kind of comeback story that feels almost too perfect. But even in that optimism, there's doubt. Knees aren't simple. Rehabilitation isn't linear. Age doesn't pause for recovery. What if he doesn't come back at full speed? What if the burst is gone, the acceleration dulled, the cuts less sharp? A Tyreek Hill at 90% is still dangerous. But is he worth the contract he signed, even restructured? The Dolphins aren't just managing one player. They're balancing an entire roster in flux. Last offseason was about youth, about cutting away bloated deals, about preparing for a future where Waddle, Tua, and others would be the centerpiece. Hill fit beautifully into the plan when he arrived, but now, he feels more like a question mark than a pillar. Add to that the uncertainty around leadership. Mike McDaniel's seat has warmed. Chris Greer's decisions are under a microscope. The team's 1-3 start has people wondering how long ownership's patience will last. If a new regime steps in, how likely is it they'll commit to an expensive veteran wide receiver, one recovering from a major injury, one carrying a personality that demands the spotlight? New coaches, new GMs, they often want a clean slate. Hill doesn't exactly fit into that vision. It's a thought Dolphins fans aren't ready to entertain, but it lingers in the background. What if that catch attempt against the Jets was his last? What if Hill's Miami chapter ends not with fireworks, not with a championship run, but with silence. His body crumpled on the turf. It feels cruel. Hill's time in Miami has been electric. The partnership with Waddle redefined what speed looks like in the modern NFL. Tua's deep ball had its perfect weapon. Defenses lived in constant terror. The highlight reel is endless. And yet, football doesn't wait for sentiment. It moves fast. It erases quickly. And players who once looked untouchable find themselves out the door before anyone has time to process it. Would Miami fans forgive the franchise for moving on? Or would they see it as cold, ruthless, maybe even foolish? Rosenhaus is setting the stage for what's coming. He knows the Dolphins won't keep Hill under the current terms. So he's framing it as simple. Hill wants to stay. They want to talk. It's just about finding a number that works. But what number works? For Miami, the floor is low. They'll argue age, injury, decline. For Hill, the ceiling remains high. He's been one of the league's most feared receivers, a game-changer who, if healthy, tilts everything in an offense's favor. The gap between those perspectives could be massive. And in that gap sits the future of a player who's already transformed one franchise and now may be at the edge of moving again. Fans don't process this the way executives do. To them, Hill isn't a line item on a spreadsheet. He's the blur on a Sunday afternoon. He's the receiver who made Tua look unstoppable at times. He's the reason defenses played back, opening space for Waddle, for a chain, for everyone else. He's excitement packaged into every snap. Losing him feels like more than losing a player. It feels like losing an identity. And that's the tension the Dolphins now live in. The numbers say one thing. The heart says another. Is Hill worth keeping if he's no longer the same explosive threat? Would Miami's offense survive without him? Or even thrive in a new form? Is it better to cut ties now, take the cap relief, and push forward with youth? Or is there still one more chapter to write? One more season where Hill defies age and injury and becomes the star again? No one has those answers today. Not Rosenhaus. Not McDaniel. Not Greer. Maybe not even Hill himself. The conversation about Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins doesn't stop with contracts, surgeries, or speculation about front office moves. It runs deeper than that. It's about trust between a franchise and its fan base, about belief in a vision that sometimes feels clear and other times looks like it's written in fog. Hill's arrival was supposed to be the spark that pushed Miami into a new tier of legitimacy. It wasn't just about touchdowns and highlights. It was about identity, swagger, proof that the Dolphins could land and maximize a superstar in the middle of his prime. If that ends abruptly, what does that say about where this organization really is? There's also the locker room dynamic to think about. Hill has been a voice, a presence, someone teammates rally around. You remove him, and it's not just yards and speed leaving, it's energy. Can Jalen Waddle step into that void and be more than a co-star? Can Tua carry a locker room stripped of its loudest and most fearless weapon? Some players elevate when the stage clears, but others struggle without that spark next to them. This is the kind of shift that doesn't show up in cap numbers, but can ripple through an entire roster. And what about the timeline? The Dolphins aren't building for a 5-year horizon. They're building for right now. Tua's window is fragile. Waddle is entering his prime. A chain is cheap and electric. The defense is still adjusting to its new look. This is the core. This is the chance. If Hill is discarded or diminished, does Miami's contention window shrink with him? Fans don't want to hear about 2026 savings when the frustration of near misses and early collapses is already thick in the air. There's a part of this debate no one says out loud, but everyone feels. Does Hill want to be here if the Dolphins reset again? Rosenhaus can say the right things, but Hill has been in winning locker rooms before. He knows what championship contention looks like, and he knows his career doesn't have unlimited chapters left. Would he really stay if Miami stalls? Or if leadership shifts once again and chaos takes over? Maybe this is less about what the Dolphins want and more about what Hill ultimately chooses.